All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Post Game Podcast. Appreciate you tuning in, checking it out here. My guest today is a former college football player at the University of Minnesota. He's the founder of Strive Higher After Sports, a platform where he helps athletes design a fulfilled life after the game ends. His experience as a Division I football player has driven him to create bridges to help enhance people's lives while connecting them to different resources like coaching, life design workshops, and public speaking. His mission and passion is to help athletes succeed and have fulfilling lives after their sport ends. His name is Stephen Davis Jr. Steve, Steve, thanks for coming on, man. This was awesome, and really enjoyed talking to you. It was very enjoyable just hearing about your football career and really what you're doing to help former athletes figure out what the heck they're going to do with their lives afterwards. So, very cool. A little bit more of what we talk about are his football career, playing the Big Ten, some of the biggest games that he played in, some of the biggest crowds, finding his footing after football ended. He thought he might have a shot to play in the NFL. Didn't happen. So what did he do after that? And a little bit about building relationships and having a bias towards action. So again, Steve, awesome catching up with you, man, and hope you can enjoy this episode out there as well with Stephen Davis Jr. Steve, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing good, man. Getting ready for the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir. That's what I was telling you. I got my Eagle shirt on here, and people in Philly are excited, so it should be a good one.
I bet.
Who do you like?
You know, that's an interesting question. I'm hoping Philly could pull it off, but every time I've bet against Mahomes, he's pulled it off. So I don't have a hand in this one.
Yep. So one of my buddies was saying the other day, he's like, you can't bet against Mahomes. It's like betting against Tom Brady. Man, every time you do it, it just ends up not working out. But
it's starting to get like that, right?
The last time the Eagles won it was against Tom Brady. So we'll see.
That's true. That's true.
But anyway, man, I'm excited to talk to you because we connected a few weeks ago, just kind of talking about, what I'm doing and how it's similar to I think what you've been doing with athletes for a couple of years now, and just looking forward to hearing about your background, and then we can talk about a little bit what you're working on going forward. But where it started, so playing at Minnesota, man, what was your experience playing football at Minnesota like in the Big Ten?
Man, the Big Ten is like no other. You can see even now, Big Ten won the national championship. The athletic competition, the amount of prestige, the teams that you get to play against. It is always a battle. Any given team could pull off an upset. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to play in the Big Ten, even at a young age. And it just so happened that Minnesota kind of swooped in and pursued me at a time where I was, deciding between Iowa or Wisconsin, and both of those teams kind of screwed me. So Minnesota showed up, and I realized that Minnesota showed me love, and they also don't like Wisconsin and Iowa. So decided to join the Gophers and had an amazing experience there. I was a 4-year starter. Started off a freshman year as a freshman All-American playing defensive end. And then my last 2 years moved to outside linebacker. It ended my career, like top 10 in sacks in our all-time list, was a senior captain. And really, I feel like had a really good career, and it was an amazing experience. I still live in Minnesota. So, it brought me to my new home.
Awesome, man. What was there a highlight of your career that you could put your finger on, if there was anything?
Yeah, I always point back to this. It was like my coming out party my freshman year. We played against Michigan in the Big House, and Michigan was ranked, I can't remember what, they were top 10 at the time. And we went in there, pulled off an upset. And for me, I was getting motivated by an alum player that was there kind of telling me what to do. And I ended up getting 2 sacks that game against Chad Henne. And, it was just an opportunity after that. Coach Lloyd Carr kind of talked to our coach, Glenn Mason, was like, who's that Steve Davis guy that you got? So it was definitely like a highlight that I always remember, that we win that game. We got the jug. we planted the flag in the middle of the field. I know that's controversy now, but
Oh
we
man,
did that, and that was fun. So
it's a felony, or they're trying to make that a felony in some states for these states,
right.
depending on where you're doing it. That's awesome, man. What I'd love to hear your perspective on like what did it feel like running out of the tunnel pregame? Like you're especially in a well, actually, it doesn't matter away or home, but what did that feel like?
Man, that's a great question. I remember my first game, and my first game, I didn't know I was going to be a starter. It's my freshman year. A couple of upperclassmen got hurt. I was in with the ones during tour days, and then it was literally like a couple of days before our first game where the coach told me like, "Hey, I'm going to start you." So then I'm trying to get my mind prepared because we're playing on a Saturday night on ESPN in Tulsa. And all I can remember is I'm walking out, obviously nerve wracking, just kind of getting the butterflies, the jitters, just like I'm about to play in front of thousands of people on national TV. Never really experienced that. Like in high school, we had our small crowd. Like in St. Louis, we don't get a lot of nationally televised games. So I'm not used to that atmosphere. But going out there and just feeling the environment and seeing all the lights, seeing the crowd, like that was something that it just kind of blew my mind. Like, oh my God, I'm actually like playing big time football in an arena where people are watching not only here but also on TV. And it just kept getting better and better after that. Like, playing in the Big Ten, you playing in some really prestige stadiums, playing at Wisconsin, where they're doing the jump around and you feel the environment. Like it's crazy there. Playing at Iowa, those fans are very disrespectful. But it is a crazy atmosphere, and I tell people all the time the craziest atmosphere that I've ever played in was at Happy Valley in Penn State. They had a whiteout game against us, and literally, I could not hear the play calls, from our coaches on the sideline, and then my guy next to me was trying to relay the play, still could not hear. It was so loud, and we got our butts whooped that game, but a lot of it was contributed to the crowd. It was like, this is the craziest atmosphere I've ever played in my life.
So that crowd, that away atmosphere really impacts, as you are, in your opinion, yet going into that place.
No doubt.
It has a huge impact on how the game goes, huh?
No doubt, no doubt. It takes you out of the game sometimes. Like if you can't hear and everything's so loud and you're trying to fight against that, but then that crowd is giving that team energy. It's like the momentum swings are real. And when the crowd is into it, it gives the team life. You know what I mean? So
Definitely, man. Yeah. So thinking back on your football career, like what are you most proud of? I guess about that time period.
that's a great question. For me, I would say my most proudest moment was when my senior year. I was the only captain that was unanimously selected by all of my teammates, and that to me was more of a testament to you know how everybody else felt about me and my leadership style to help take our team to the next level. Um, it was funny because the year prior we had got a new coach and we went 1-11. It was like the worst year of my life. It felt like at that time because I've never had a losing season, and that was the first time. So I kind of took it upon myself to make sure that we didn't do that again, and brought a lot of our team together over the summer and just kind of worked hard and worked at it. And I was surprised. I wasn't trying to be a captain. I was just trying to help us, move to the next stage. But to me, like that is the most proudest moment that I've had in my playing days, was that all my teammates, all my peers, they valued me and respected me enough to elect me as the person to help lead the team. And that's beyond the accolades and the stats. Like getting that respect from everybody is something that I've always cherished.
It's cool, man, because that's so much more important than any stat or anything, right? Or any sack you ever had, any home run you ever hit, like that type of thing. Is that lasts forever, right? That
Yeah,
lasts forever versus
right.
that 4 year time period, because you'll never. Yeah, man, I think about that because you try to be the best teammate that you can while balancing like being a competitive dude, right? And having the best outcome for yourself, but at the end of the day, like 10 year for me, almost 10 years removed from it, you don't remember any of the plays anybody made. You just kind of remember what kind of guy they were, like in general, pretty much, which is pretty interesting. So I don't know,
Yeah,
but um,
you definitely remember the locker room moments and
yeah,
the trenches and just the bond that you've built. You know what I mean? Like you see your former teammates out in the real world, and it's just like it's like yesterday. Like we never were apart from each other. We're able to just pick up on conversations and just authentically connect to each other. You know, and I think that was fine. Bonded. During the time when we were playing and going through all the different things together.
for sure, definitely, man. So what after football came to a close?
Yeah.
Like what were the steps that ultimately brought you to where you are now? Because you're right now you're giving back to the athlete that's kind of, for lack of a better way to say it, struggling with what they want to do or who they are.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I experienced what many of us experience in that regard of, you playing a sport for a very, very long time and you've attached your identity to it. And like me, I thought I was going to the NFL and that was going to set up everything else in my life. Um, but that dream quickly died because I did not make it to the NFL. And I had to really reshuffle and try to figure out, like, all right, well, what's next? But wait, I don't know who I am without this. I've only played this, for a majority of my life. And yeah, I got my degree. Yeah, I may have an idea of certain things, but I still don't feel the same. I don't feel like the same person, and I don't know who that person is without football. So it was a struggle, man. I was in a deep depressed state, just trying to, you know, unravel all these different things, reckon with the fact that football is over for me, um, and that all the things that I thought that people looked up to me for, they can no longer point towards. And I ran away from that. Like I didn't want to be a disappointment to anybody else. I felt like a disappointment to myself. Um, but I just tried to see if I can move on. Let me go try out this thing called life, and and get a job and do it the way that everybody said. You get a college degree, go get a job, get a house, all these different things. Like, all right, let's see what this life is like, right? But I was ill-equipped, not prepared for any of it. I applied to jobs. I had interviews for the first time in my life because I didn't have the chance to interview with anything, playing football. And confident as I am as a person, feeling like my peers may be a captain, trying to talk about that, nobody cared. No job. So I wasn't getting anything. So it was just like, a huge blow to the ego and just trying to figure out like, who am I and how do I talk about myself? But what really helped me was when I, connected with another player and we just kind of talked about life outside of sports and just life in general. And he helped pick me up out of a really bad state. And that was like the catalyst for me to lean into like more conversations with people and try to put myself out there in different spaces just to like have relationships and build community. That guy ended up giving me my first job and got me started with this thing called life. But I started doing more of that, like community building stuff and just going out and talking to people, meeting with people. Coincidentally, I was meeting with a lot of athletes. And when I talk to them, I hear the same story. Like they were struggling. Everybody's going through their own things mentally and, you know, um, trying to understand who they are. And I'm like, wow, it's a lot of us like this, huh? And what did your school do? Like, did your school help? And a lot of them like, no, as soon as I'm gone, they kind of shut the door. My team, that I played on, I played pro. Now, I go back for events, but that's not helping me. I'm trying to figure out this thing called life and nobody's there to help. And I'm like, damn, it sucks. That shouldn't be the case. And why is that? So it started there for me. It was like this ignition of like, why are we doing this journey by ourselves, especially because we poured all of this time into this sport and then all of a sudden it's gone and nobody's there to help us. And I don't want to feel like this forever. And I know a lot of my teammates also were struggling in that same capacity. So it drove me to try to figure out a solution. And part of it was moving back to Minnesota to see if I can help. back at the place that, recruited me and promised all these different things. And that's what really kind of gave me an opportunity to be a bridge. But I still see like the issue is there and it's present with all athletes, not just football, baseball. There's any athlete that has played a sport for a very long time, like you have that identity attached to it. And then all of a sudden it's gone. That structure is gone. That regimen is gone. And you're like, wait, what am I supposed to do with my time? Who am I? And all these different things that come up. And I realized that we need support. So I wanted to, be that catalyst and help out. And that's what really spurred what I'm doing now.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, man, it's great. It's great what you're doing. Could you ever have imagined that you'd be doing this right now?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I got my degree. So here's a funny story. When I started school, I was getting a degree in graphic design. And this is for those who are not athletes, they probably won't understand why this is critical, right? Um, I my sophomore year, as I was getting to my core classes, I realized that they were at the same time as practice. So what I had to do in order to maintain my scholarship and play on the team, well, you better change your major, buddy. So I changed my major to mass communications or communications major, just so I can make sure I can take my classes and try to get a little bit of some of the knowledge that I wanted to do from a graphic standpoint. But just think about that. Like I had to change everything for football because that was a priority. So I thought when I got done, like maybe I can get back into graphics, somehow get into an ad agency. And I tried to explore that. I did a couple of freelance and different things. Then I joined a couple of agencies and I did do some marketing. I did some account management, project management. But I didn't know what my true purpose was until I just continued to have conversations with people and realizing that this issue of athletes in their transition is still a void. um, I just wanted to pour more energy into it. And I didn't know what that looked like. But 2020 kind of opened up more doors for me, just thinking about like purpose and moving forward and having a lot of conversations with people who are trying to help the issue. And then it clicked on me like, oh, maybe I should be coaching and kind of helping people in that transition. But never really knew what it was. And, thinking from a coaching standpoint, you think a coach is telling you everything you need to do. Well, from a life coach perspective, a life coach is an accountability partner. You already have all the tools and assets and everything that you need to move forward. As a life coach, I'm here to kind of hold up a mirror and make sure that you understand the things that are in front of you, and can reflect back on those things to help you move forward and be empowered to do all the things that you need to do versus you holding me accountable to your life. So it kind of helped me shift my perspective on like how to approach this work and be more effective versus having all the keys to everybody's life. So that's something that just kind of fell upon this whole journey of just me trying to discover how to help people.
Sure, definitely, man. It's awesome. So you've said a couple times that it comes down to connecting with other people, right? I mean, and isolating yourself doesn't do much good. Like I've gone through time. You think you can figure it out yourself, but it never really works out. So, like, what would you suggest to somebody that's going through like, and they don't feel like they can reach out to somebody or don't know where to go almost? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
terms of
I
connecting
mean,
with people?
that's deep because I feel like during that time we're isolating ourselves because we feel like we're probably going through something that a lot of people can't understand, right? But I guarantee you, any of your teammates, any of the athletes that you know in your life, they've gone through it. So start there. Start there with the people who are closest to you, who have already experienced the trenches of being an athlete, and just have a conversation. Be willing to be open, because more times than not, like your experience is something that somebody else has experienced, and they can give you a little bit of light to help you move forward. And the other part that I think is important is during that period when I was going through my transition, like yeah, I was very headstrong on just like drowning my sorrows in different things, and being isolated. Um, And when I realized that the job that I got was because I connected with somebody, I started to say, why don't I just like find more people who have been through the same experience and just connect further and build some relationships. Because if anything, if I'm struggling with something, I can confide in this group and they can help me push through it, because they understand it. So I started seeking out more community, started seeking out, more like-minded individuals. And it's funny because nowadays there are a lot of groups like community groups, networking groups, former athlete alumni association groups. Like there are things out there that you can just join to get a part of, just so you can be around that team atmosphere again, because it's important. We've been groomed in that as athletes, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So you still need that lifeblood. You still need that connection to a bigger team. And when you're connected to people who are like former athletes that understand the journey, it is much more effective for you as a person, because you don't feel like you have to be anything outside of yourself in that space.
For sure. So yeah, it's funny. Like once I started just diving down this, and like I came across, well, actually, I think it was Thad that had connected us, but just like you, once you start opening doors, other doors open almost. I don't know if that's was the most articulate way to say that, but
Yeah.
like what you kind of start searching for, like appears pretty much. Like I ended up talking to Christian Ponder from the Post, and like um, just like different guys who were doing something similar,
Yeah.
right? And they all had that same experience. So exactly what you're saying, like you gotta get the ball rolling and take some action. So
It does take action. Like you can sit in the sorrow for a while, and I think a lot of us get into that mode, and it is perfectly fine, because like, yeah, you do have to go through the grieving period. It's kind of like you lose a piece of yourself, right? Um, and at a certain point, then you also need to figure out what is the action step that's going to get you to kind of move forward and get out of this funk. And a lot of what I help athletes kind of do is not only build the foundation and kind of understand where they want to go and what they're interested in, but have a bias towards trying stuff and be okay with the failure. Like, we're resilient, we're athletes, we know how to set a goal and keep charging forward. We lose games, we lose reps. We don't win every match, and we're still able to keep going. You make a mistake in the play, you got to keep your head in the game. And the same thing it applies to life, because life is hard and there's going to be lots of ups and downs. Um, but in order for you to move forward, you got to continue to try. You got to continue to push forward. So it's definitely applicable. When it comes to life, and just you in that funk, you gotta take a step forward. And usually it's easiest to take that step forward when you have that community that's pushing you and encouraging you to do so.
it sure is, man. It really is. See, the bias towards trying stuff, I totally agree with you. What I think about sometimes though is like the difference between building a like sticking through something. Like that's what you hear
Yeah.
sometimes. Like knowing when to quit something, knowing when to stop something, versus all right, man, you're not going to just transfer from Minnesota because you had a tough year or whatever. Like
Yeah.
actually pushing through. So, you have any thoughts around that? I don't know, like sticking through and almost watering the grass. What's the saying? The grass is green where you water it. Like making your situation better where you are before seeking out a different job opportunity or something along
Yeah,
those
most
lines.
definitely. There is a concept in designing your life that is called that talks about don't quit, reinvent. And it is really focused around like looking at your current predicament, right? And if you already have the ultimate goal of knowing like who you want to become and like where that pathway kind of leads, you can take any situation that you're currently in and find like the oranges in it, right? You can find the shining lights and use that as continual motivations or continual like gratitude moments, just to say like, okay, I'm getting this out of this moment at least, despite all the other things that I don't like. But it's also, I think, super important in these moments to understand a little bit more about all the data points that you can collect on yourself. So The resiliency comes when you understand where you're trying to go from the person you're trying to grow into. And then you can be in the situations and looking through, okay, I don't like my boss right now, but this job gives me the opportunity to gain experience in something that I'm going to do later. So if I can focus my attention on that, it will help me stay in this for the time period that I need to be in here to get the knowledge that I need versus I got to get out of here because this person right here is not allowing me to do what I want to do. The more you collect the information on the things that are driving you and the things that you're not attracted to, you can always make pivots and adjustments. And the thing is, I'm a prime example of this in a lot of my roles. Sometimes outside of just like going to a different place, I've gone and had the conversation when I realized like, okay, I like doing more of this in my job than I do this. Let me go talk to my supervisor and just say, hey, I would like to make an adjustment, if anything, that I can do a little bit more of this work that I have, a little bit more desire and passion in. And would you be willing to like, make an adjustment? And 9 times out of 10, they may be like, oh yeah, we can slide some things out and make an adjustment in your role. And sometimes if you are valued enough, they would recreate and invent something for you. I've had numerous roles created for me just based upon like all the things that I'm doing. And I'm like, hey, here's where I see myself going in this career. What can we do here to help me like do a little bit more of it? And they're like, you know what, Steve? I was thinking about something that we're going to hire for this position, but now that you say this, maybe we can make some adjustments and then hire a different position. You know what I mean? So then it gives you an opportunity to explore more on the experience that you're trying to gain while you're still in the same place. And that kind of builds on that resiliency of being in a spot and being able to push through. But you got to understand that the ticking factors that you have that will keep you at a certain place. I feel like these kids nowadays is very short-lived, very short and limited, and they're ready to go somewhere immediately, And when it comes to life, you can't just bounce around jobs every year because then eventually they're going to be like, okay, I don't know if we can hire you because are you going to stay here? We need you to be here at least 2 years. And you're like, that's too much for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Resiliency, man. Yeah, it's such a good point.
Yeah.
So then, what do you think about then the current landscape? Like, I wanted to ask you about that. The NIL.
Yeah.
I heard you were on a podcast recently, called the Yips Podcast. That was kind of an interesting name for a podcast. But they asked you a little bit about that too, NIL, and how that's going to shape. I mean, I don't even know where to really start with that. Like in terms of jobs, because it's almost you're going to get paid while you're in college, but then future, almost to your point, that's kind of more so the transfer portal and whatnot. How that's going to impact how kids jumping around from thing to thing. But just like broadly speaking, how are you thinking about the NIL stuff right now?
I mean, it's definitely a disruption that's coming, but that's part of life, man. And I think in college athletics, there's always these ebbs and flows of new things, and then there's an adjustment period. Now, this is more dramatic than it has been in the past, with major changes from paying the players to allowing them the opportunity to leave when they want to leave, because coaches have been able to do this for years, and coaches get paid, and these players, including myself, I wish I was getting paid, like when I was playing. But the thing, I think there's two things to it. For one, I think for the players, it is definitely a benefit, getting an opportunity to make money off of your play and your name and your image. That is well worth it. We should be getting that. We're damn near employees when we are at a college institution because, like I mentioned, I had to change my major to play football. So I'm not a student athlete. I'm an athlete student,
Yeah. Yep.
So, that being said, like I feel like the athlete has to be a lot more knowledgeable and aware of their brand. And I think that is super helpful for them in life to build a brand, especially if they are, going out to the real world. And I don't like to categorize myself as just like an employee of an organization. I feel like I am an impact player. Like I come in with my own thoughts and my own authenticity and my own brand that helps shift the culture and impact the culture of the organization and bring people because they they are resonating with me, and giving the athletes the opportunity now where they're, getting NIL deals, but more specifically, they're learning how to build their own brand and, be entrepreneurial at a very young age, because they're making money and they have to make money based upon how they present themselves and what they represent. So I think that's going to be helpful for them, especially as they get in real life, to, be able to navigate how to continue that into their career, into whatever organization they may create. But then on the onset, it's like, okay, it's a little unregulated, and you start, tapping into money and these opportunities at an early age in high school, which is where it is penetrating. You'll have a lot of players who, definitely, and granted, they should be feeling like this, like, hey, I'm on top of the world. Like, I'm making this amount of money, this year, and this school is going to pay me this, so I'm gonna go to that school, right? Take advantage of all of that. I agree. If I was in their situation, I would be doing the same thing. But on the onset, I feel like it is right for them being taken advantage of, and is right for them to not understand how to use this and leverage this towards future success and future opportunities when they're done playing, because they could be injured at any point in time. They got all this money and they don't really know what to do with that money. Or now they got to go find a job and they're not making the same amount of money that they made with this NIL deal.
Yep.
So I think that is an issue that I'm paying close attention to, and just thinking like the mental well-being of the athlete. There's already a lot of pressure that you have when you play in these sports. Now you got money tied to it, and you're 18 years old, and everybody's demanding and hoping like, hey, I paid you $1 million and you need to produce on the field, or why are we paying this $1 million? And then you leave the next year. Like, there's a lot, and social media just exacerbates it, right? And then you add on the coaching staff and the administrative side, like, if they're going to be forced to pay these athletes, out of their budget in the coming year, that's what it's looking like. Then they're going to be forced to make decisions on who stays and who goes from their administrative side, and what's the focus, because it's really going to be on the ROI. Like, they have to gain revenue in order to pay the players. They have to win on the field to get the revenue to do all these different things. So anything outside of that is going to be obsolete, in my opinion, in the future. So it's a very scary picture, which is why, like, having these conversations with these athletes and putting the right people who can build a trust circle with them, I think is very important to help them navigate the changing landscape, but also set them up for success in the future, because they can be taken advantage of really, really badly in this space.
Totally, man. That's well articulated right there. But as you were saying that, I mean, that made me think, like, yeah, as a 16, 17, 18-year-old athlete, you really are forced to grow up much quicker, especially if you're going to have people talking, I mean, money. I didn't know anything outside of like a landscaping job, or like, some job like that where you get a couple bucks. You're like, all right, this is great. But especially being in that spotlight, I mean, 10, 20 years ago, you could get away with something off the field.
Yeah.
Now, forget that. That probably just started becoming a thing when I don't know if that was the same. I don't know how many years younger I am than you, but like, where we started having those workshops where they're like, hey, social media, that stuff's going to be there for forever, right? But now it's like, you could lose out. Forget about your NIL deal, would probably impact the rest of your career. Like, if you do something your life after sports too. So yeah, man,
social media space is wild right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. But at the same time, brand, I mean, you hear the word brand and you think social media. At least that's where my head goes to. What do you think about that? Like, just building that brand. Is it important to build a brand for an athlete?
Most definitely.
Social media, yeah.
I think it's beyond social media. I mean, social media is a mechanism to enhance the brand, but the brand is really like, it's like a mission statement. It's like the value of who you are and what you bring. And people, especially organizations that are trying to like spend their money, they want to associate with the brand that is closely aligned to their mission and their values, right? So if you're able to build a brand about who you are and what you represent, and you learn how to do that at an early age, you know how to be authentic with that, people are going to resonate with you more because of like the things that you stand for and what you bring to the table, and that's something that you can apply and showcase in a lot of different modems, whether it be, social media, video, emails, or just having conversations and associating yourself with certain events. Like I think it's important. I love branding. Like I went to school for graphic design, and I built brands, and I understand the intricacies of like what brands are trying to do to gain attention from other folks, but also the biggest brands, in my opinion, are the ones who have values and stand for something, and people resonate because they stand for something that they believe in. So giving athletes an opportunity to authentically build something that is true to them and have a brand behind it, I think is great. I started my brand Strive Higher every day, before I even started my organization Strive Higher at the Sports. And Strive Higher every day for me was like, I want to get better, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to impact, I want to do something that helps grow every day. And that's just how I want to show up, and that to me is my why. That to me is the thing that I do differently than others. And people know me now and say Strive Higher all the time because that's just the brand that I've associated myself with.
That's great. And there's like a positive. Yeah, you hear that, it's almost immediately a positive connotation to that.
Yeah.
Right? You probably associate your name with Steve's a positive dude, man. He's trying to get better every day. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, listen, man, I wanted to give you a chance too, just to talk about a little bit what we were discussing before we started recording this with Strive Higher after sports, and kind of where maybe just like your process with that, but then
Yeah.
where that's evolving and where you're taking it.
Yeah. I mean, so I've been doing it for about a year or so now. And, I am continuing to work with, individuals in their transition process. But I think over this year, I'll be doing some speaking engagements and working with groups of athletes and doing some life design. For me, I think it's imperative, as we talked about earlier about the NIL space. I think it's imperative to hit home on the message early for athletes, because the identity and attachment to that identity starts when you're a youth. So I've actually I'm working with a couple of groups here in Minnesota to talk to high school, middle school athletes and give them a chance to start early in the process of designing different aspects and avenues of things they want to explore. And my biggest thing that I've regretted, and always talk to athletes about this, is that there's a bunch of people around you and resources, whether it be teachers, coaches, administrators, tutors, mentors, all those different people around you who are supporting you, who are there for you to keep you eligible, but also they can be much more than that. And you can take advantage of that while you have that, because when it's gone, it's gone. And then you're like, whoa, where did that support go? So for these high school athletes and these middle school athletes, giving them a chance to like, design some elements, but also like, how can I explore this and who can I take advantage of? Not to a certain extent of taking advantage of the person, but the opportunity to learn more about myself in this particular category. So giving athletes a chance to do that and explore. Once again, bias towards action. So I'm doing some of that. And then, in my partnership with Athlete Soul, a nonprofit that works with athletes in their transition to life, they have a speaking series, an interview series called Transition Talks. And in Transition Talks, we basically shed light on the ups and downs of transitioning out of sports, from collegiate level to pro level to Olympic level. Everybody is experiencing it, and everybody has a story to share. I'm a huge believer in storytelling, and everybody has impact from learning from stories. You can find something to resonate through that. So being able to work with Athlete Soul to kind of help shed a light on this space and just transition in general, and just talk about like, how did you get through it, and share some nuggets for folks who are going through it now, maybe going through it in the future. But just knowing, like, once again, as you talked about earlier, like being in that space, like how do you step outside of yourself and find other people? And you hear these stories of people going through what you're going through, it give you a little bit more aptitude to like want to connect with other athletes, because then you understand like, oh, they actually are understanding what I'm going through. So that is truly what the idea is here with continuing to shed light in the space with these transition talks and interviews. So we'll have one a month, with different athletes from around the world and different categories. So excited to continue to serve in that space.
Awesome, man. Digging into some interviews and doing getting on that side of the mic. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm be like
I don't know if you want to be like me, but but it's cool, man, because it's also one thing I just had jotted down. Like it's for current athletes, right, and then those that are in the process of retiring, and then those who have already retired.
yeah.
Who, like, that's what I think about. For me, I'm like, I just started kind of having some of these conversations 2 years ago. That's 6 years after this started, or I'm sorry, after
After you've got done playing.
college.
Yeah.
After I got done playing. So yeah, so there's kind of different phases of it, man, and it goes in waves, and it comes at different times. So
Yeah, no doubt. And I think a lot of us too, like it takes us a while. Like that period of trying to find yourself, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. For some of us, it takes a couple years, just kind of trial and error. But my biggest thing with that is I don't want folks to feel like they got to go through that by themselves. There's plenty of communities, there's plenty of space, plenty of athletes that are willing to help and support. And while I'm just one person that can help from a transition standpoint, I'm also like trying to just be a resource and be connected so that we all can flourish. And if you need to have a community of people you just want to have a beer with, we can make that happen, so you don't have to go through the journey alone.
love that. That's great. Someone to share a beer with. Everybody needs that.
Yeah.
So I want to just ask you one more question, Steve. So thanks for the time, man. This is awesome. A lot of the times it can be we talked about this a little bit, like it can be overwhelming maybe on where to start, or like you want to improve. It's with anybody. Like you have a New Year's resolution, you have 10 New Year's resolutions, and what happens is you end up doing none of them because it's too much. So like if there's one thing that somebody could take, a step that they could take to get in the right direction, what comes to mind for you?
Progress over perfection. I think we're groomed in an atmosphere where we set high goals, right? And we're trying to win that championship and meet that destination. But life is a process. So to me, for folks who don't journal, I always recommend it because you can learn so many valuable things about yourself throughout your days. And being able to, which is my brand, my association to life is strive higher every day. Being able to take a small step and celebrate that small step is what's going to keep you going so that eventually you reach that milestone. You may surpass that milestone if you focus on the small things that you can do versus thinking about the bigger thing. Like 10 years from now, I want to be this and I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Don't focus on that. You got to focus on what can I control today to help me get closer. And am I satisfied with what I've done today? Is there something that I learned about myself today that'll help me in this process? Because sometimes when you're on that journey and you might have a focus to one destination, there are going to be some things that come in and it's just going to be like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. Like for me, I wasn't expecting to be a life coach. I was just like, how can I help people? And let me just go on this journey. And then things started to come in and I'm like, oh, maybe that could be something I can explore. Or maybe I should pivot. And it's okay to pivot too. But if you take it like a day at a time, a step at a time, it's like you're laying a foundation of bricks, right? And eventually you want to build a house. But you got to start by each brick. And sometimes it takes a brick at a time. You can lay one brick. Maybe the next day you want to lay 3 bricks. Maybe the next day you can only do a half a brick. It's totally fine. But you can celebrate those small moments. So I always talk about progress over perfection because it gets us out of that mindset that we need to be at this place and we feel like we're too late. We haven't met that destination yet. Like, no, that destination might be different 10 years from now. And you're going to learn so much about yourself if you focus on each day.
Love it, man. That's awesome. Yeah, celebrating small wins. That's something a guy that I've gotten to know through a group actually, like a men's group type of thing. That's what he has guys think about. He's like, just celebrate the small wins, man, because it's easy to beat up on yourself a little bit, and like you just said, you take a step forward, and then you might take a step back the next day. Like you can beat yourself up about it, but just celebrate those small things that kind of come off for you. So,
No doubt.
all right, Steve. Well, listen, man, thank you again for the time. It's great. I think what you're doing for former athletes, current athletes, retired athletes is great, and it's definitely a space that is it's needed, man. It's definitely needed. So, where can folks find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Shed underscore Avenue, SHED underscore AVE. And also on my website, strivehigheratthesports.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So if you are on LinkedIn and you're looking for connections, just connect with me. I love to just even have conversations with people. I'm open to that. If you're in that space and you're transitioning or you know some athletes that need some support, like just tell them, like, have the conversation. I know where they're at in their head, and I can understand, like, you may not know everything and it's hard to like make that step, but usually starts with a conversation. That's what changed my life. So
that's where it starts, man. That's where it starts. Great.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. Great stuff, man. Looking forward to staying in touch with you, and just thanks again.
Yeah, no problem, man.